Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of Crate 808. And today we have the former contributing editor for Hip Hop Connection magazine and co-founder of Fat Lace Mag, Mr. Southern Hospitality himself, Rob Pursey. How you doing, mate?
How are you doing? Great to be here. Thank you.
Mate, thank you for coming to Crate 808. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, yeah. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, man. So, bona fide hip hop head?
All the way. Too many years in the game. Too many years in the game.
Yeah, man. I keep seeing your, you keep popping up on my Twitter and just keep hearing your name mentioned. So I thought, got to get you into the Crate.
I mean, that's probably not always a good thing. But, you know, I'm still glad I'm out there.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. Yeah, definitely. And so people who don't know, give a little bit of bio for yourself, mate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as someone who's been into hip-hop for years, I started dipping my toe in the water in the 90s with some journalism, wrote for, obviously, Hip Hop Connection, The Face magazine, and various hip-hop outlets here and there, some that are now defunct, no longer exist, and some that still do in some form, and never forget. And then obviously I became a DJ in the early 2000s, DJed with DJ Yoda, did a night called Spread Love at the Social for years, where we, you know, had lots of people down like Madlib and everyone, you know, it's one of those moments in time very much. Yeah. And then I moved on and founded Hip Hop Karaoke, and then obviously Hip Hop Karaoke, we do take that to festivals around the world, you know.
Oh, it's huge, Hip Hop Karaoke.
Yeah, so, yeah. Now
so you're to blame for most of my office Christmas parties when people get up there to rap.
That's it.
And they
I am solely to blame. It's a burden I'm going to bear.
That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. So one of the first things we ask every guest who comes into Crate 808, what is the least hip-hop thing you've done in the last 24 hours?
Oh, I mean, probably play tennis.
Yeah, fair. I'm trying to think of any tennis players I know. No, although Serena did use Mama Said Knock You Out.
There's some very tenuous connections. I think Common dated Serena for a while.
Oh, there we go.
That's probably, of all the sports, I think maybe tennis, the two sports I play really, tennis and darts. I don't think I've ever had a hip hop mention.
We need more hip hop in darts.
We do.
There's so much good walking music as well.
Oh, can you imagine?
That's what we need more of that. You're right. And
that should be one of your questions. What would be your darts walking music?
Oh, shit. What would be your darts walking music?
I think it would have to be something pretty epic, like, you know, Simon Says, Pharoah Monch.
Yeah.
Something that sets the tone.
I am not going to be on my darts game. If I hear that,
that's right. You've got to intimidate the opponent.
Yeah, you throw me off straight away. I like that. But now I'm thinking, like, what are the most hip-hop tennis shots? Slamming it, it's got to be.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really work. It's just, it's a very quaint, civilized sport, really.
There's no one who serves and
we all shake hands at the end and apologize if we hit a shot, you know.
So British. I love that. So British. But thank you, mate. Thank you for that one. That's great. That's a good one. Tennis. I'm gonna think on that. one. So today you've brought in one of your favourite albums. Let us know what you brought in today.
Outkast, Southernplayalisticadillacmuzik. I have to always think before I say that because it's such a mouthful.
It really is, yeah. Mate, first of all, thank you so much for bringing this album in, because no one else I know really got into Outkast till later.
That's right. I mean, that's a real point about Outkast. They were very much an American thing until about kind of back end of Aquemini, and then obviously Stankonia became huge in the UK with Bombs Over Baghdad and huge. Miss Jackson and So Fresh So Clean, and suddenly overnight it seemed, even though they'd been out for 6-7 years at that point.
Yeah, wicked, man. Well, for people who don't know, I'm going to drop a little intro to Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. See, I have to just sort of take my time with it as well. And so people who don't know, this is your intro to the album. It's April 26th, 1994, and hip-hop is living large. Illmatic has dropped just 1 week previous, and Biggie's star is on the rise. But here comes a teenage duo from the streets of Atlanta, with Big Boy on the left and Andre on the right. Together, these two unique talents formed a southern rap group, which set in motion a movement in rap that would last for decades. With effortless ease and an ain't no thing but a chicken wing mentality, Outkast introduced themselves to the masses with their debut album, Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. After meeting 2 years previous at school and battling in lunchroom cafeterias, these youngsters decided to get up, get out and do something. Making music that was tight like hallways and smoked out always, Outkast found some huge backing through R&B powerhouse label LaFace Records and went under the wing of the stellar production crew Organised Noise, and their debut album banged as a result. Releasing a potent hit of hard but smooth Southern comfort rap, Southern Playalistic was a tour de force of intelligent gutter swamp music that took you on a hell of a funky ride. Building a world from the ATL dungeon, these boys shined a light on a scene that was not yet witnessed in rap, but one that would echo in the music of today's contemporary artists like Future, Young Thug and Gucci Mane. This wasn't Arrested Development and it wasn't Ghetto Boys. This was something completely different. Coming at the tail end of the 92 and 94 golden era, this album moulded elements of East and West Coast rap sensibilities into a truly Southern flavoured melting pot to make a whole new sound for the genre. Starting off an all-time 3-album run from what would become a legendary rap group, Outkast proved the South had something to say, and 25 years later, they're still saying it. So, Rob, after that really long intro, I'm sorry, but what
it's a great intro.
Thank you, man. But why do you think this album should be in Crate 808?
I feel like you could potentially put any Outkast album from the 90s. Obviously, they've got 3 albums released in the 90s.
Huge shout.
But I think debuts always resonate more in the fact that that's the introduction to the group and this is your introduction to their world. And I think why I think it particularly should be in is because personally I love rap albums that draw you into the world of the artist. So whether that's Nas Illmatic or whether that's Slick Rick, The Great Adventures of Slick Rick, or Public Enemy or whoever it might be, I want to know more about their world, their area, as well as be entertained by dope rap music.
Yeah, man, that's wicked. So is this the first Outkast project you got into? Because one of the things I was really interested when you said I'd like to bring this, you didn't say Quemini and you didn't say ATLians.
Yes. Technically, maybe ATLians might be my all-time favourite, maybe. On whatever day it may change.
Yeah.
But this just hit me.
Yeah.
It just hit me and it was different. In the same way, I was a hip-hop head at the time, buying everything from the East Coast, from the South, from the West, and kind of was a little bit oblivious in the earlier 90s, I think, about where things were from. Some things were obviously West Coast, and some things were obviously East Coast. But this was obviously Southern. It just struck me.
That's wicked. So tell me a bit of history. How did you find the album? Like,
so it was for younger people. Obviously, Yo MTV Raps was a big thing.
Huge.
And, you know, if a video was played on Yo MTV Raps in heavy rotation, after a while, you kind of just thought, hey, well, maybe I'll check these guys out. You know, we had it with so many of the big videos in the early 90s, whether it was DJ Quick, Just Like Compton, anything like that. But this one, I think what was different about it, I like this record. I could tell these guys could rap straight away. But looking at the video, they were in like the forest and stuff.
Oh, is that for Get Up, Get Out then?
For Players Ball.
For Players Ball, right.
And I don't think I'd ever seen a forest in a rap video before.
Yeah, it's so true.
Like, I know that seems like such, or maybe apart from 93 Till Infinity, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe that's the only other video, which another group I also loved.
Yeah.
And it just felt different.
There wasn't a lot of shrubbery in rap.
There was no shrubbery in rap. There was no topiary in rap until this point.
There really wasn't there?
No.
You're right. It was all inner city.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing. So it's very different to the way I came into this album because I didn't really know much about Outkast at all. I got into Soul Food by Goody Mob.
That's interesting.
And that was a little bit later. And that was really off the back of The Source.
Yes.
Just banging on about it. And all the adverts they'd put out into
That's
The Source.
The Source was so influential at the time.
Yeah, hugely. Especially as a little kid from like a little village, and I didn't even know Hip Hop Connection existed at that point. So we had a little news agent. So mum and dad like gave me what magazine should we put on the rack? And literally, I just went to the hip hop section. That was the top one.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it just happened to be around The Source all the time. And so I remember listening to Goody Mob. That got me into Southern rap. And then you went back. Yeah,
because you saw the connections.
Yeah, and so yes, I mean, I got ATLians, and then I went to Southern Playalistic.
That's interesting.
And is this something you would bump today? Like,
yes.
Do you still bump this today?
More so today, because I feel like it hasn't aged. You know, some music, you like it because it's aged.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, New Jack Swing, for example. You might think, let me go in a little retro mode and do the Running Man and play some New Jack Swing. Whereas I feel like Outkast, all of their music, but particularly this album and maybe the second album, it kind of sounds like it could have come out now because it didn't really sound like anything then.
Yeah.
So I think it's very hard to place in a time.
Yeah.
You know, certain music, it's like, okay, that's 1992 hip hop. That's got a chanty chorus. That's 1993 hip hop.
So true though.
This is 1994. This has got some Timberland boots on the cover.
Yeah.
This is 1995 in New York.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I think if you listen to the Southern Playalistic Cadillac music, I don't think you would necessarily be able to place it.
It's so
take it out of context.
Yeah, absolutely, so right, Rob. If you look at like I don't know if there's a few documentaries about organised noise generally. I know there's one on Netflix.
I've seen them,
Really good doc anyway, so everyone who wants to check this out, check it out.
The Art of Organised Noise, that's the best one. Yeah,
that's the one, yeah. And didn't he say in there where Andre wanted to come into the video for, I think it was Players Ball, and be like, I want to wear my Carhartt, I want to wear my Timbs. He was like, no. Wear the Atlanta stuff. And that gives it a home, but as someone from the UK, I didn't know where Atlanta was. I didn't know anything about Atlanta.
I feel like Atlanta at the time, I just knew it from the Olympics.
That was it. That's the only thing. That's the first time I'd heard of it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, wow, so this is a place I had no geographical idea of where it was.
Yeah, and with hip hop at that point, I think you just knew New York.
Yeah.
And then you knew LA. Well, you probably knew Compton before you knew LA.
Absolutely.
You knew a weird suburb of LA before you actually acknowledged the major metropolis that is LA.
It's so true, yeah.
And then, I think it was the first time I really acknowledged Atlanta. I mean, I was aware of Southern rap music. Obviously, I was aware of Texas because of the Ghetto Boys.
Yeah.
And I was aware on UGK, I was aware of at the time.
Yeah.
But I don't really think I'd put it all together that Atlanta was a, breeding ground for so much talent.
Yeah, you're so right. There's a ridiculous amount of talent come out from that city. But just going back to your point there, it's so true how you can't really place this in a time or place, this album, because when you listen to it now, the fact that Organised Noise have produced it and the fact that it's on an R&B label like LaFace Records is hugely, it's instrumental in rap. Because for me, it comes to the point where LaFace have got TLC at the time, Babyface I think was on there as well.
Tony Braxton.
And then when you hear this album, which a lot of my hip hop heads mates that are from love the East Coast boom bap, there's a lot of singing.
Yeah, I guess there is.
There's a lot of instrumental, live instruments.
It's live. I think that's the crucial difference.
Yeah.
It sounds like hip hop, but it was definitely live.
Yes.
In the same way that the Chronic was much more fleshed out from early NWA stuff with the break beats. This was almost another step forward from that. It was almost fully live. Obviously Dre was replaying the samples, whereas with Organised Noise, they were kind of creating the samples themselves. I mean, there are samples on the album.
For sure.
But they used more as interpolations and accents rather than, okay, we're going to sample the whole of this Leon Haywood record.
Yeah, talking about samples, but I love that you said interpolations, exactly right. When Big Boy on Get Up, Get Out just starts his first verse as Bob Marley.
That's right.
And I was like, oh shit, as a kid, straight away you know what that is.
That's right. It's universal, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think these little they're really intelligent. You actually realise these guys, they're kids as well. They're 19, 18 years old when they do this album.
Super young.
And you think, when they came out, there's a few things I had when I listened back to this album, the bravery they have to make such artistic statements at that young.
Totally.
But then you also have someone like L.A. Reid and from LaFace and Organised Noise like Rico Wade.
Sleepy Brown, yeah.
Yeah, who were already maybe under their wing, their tutelage, they're getting these influences. But one thing I remember when I first heard this album, it reminded me really of West Coast, mate.
Right. And I think that's probably what attracted me to it. Because at the time I was, Doggy Style had come out about 5 or 6 months before.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of West Coast rap music right from the get-go.
Yeah.
From the early days, from Ice-T to Too Short to Low Profile.
Yeah.
So I was at a time where I think I needed some musicality. Whereas in the 90s, the 92 and 93 had been very, very heavy on shouty rap.
It was angry.
You'd had
really
Onyx.
Angry. Yes.
And everyone was chanting. Every chorus was about beating someone down. And suddenly it was kind of pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely. So true.
But it was still hard, but it was pleasant hard.
That's the thing. Yeah, Rob, that's it. Rob, you've nailed it. You've absolutely nailed it. What I mean about the fact that it's a melting pot. It's it has these West Coast and East Coast sensibilities, and the fact that it's obviously live instruments, but I can bump this in the ride.
You can, yeah.
And it's smooth.
Yep.
But then it has this kind of clunky clankness to some of the beats.
Yeah.
Like the first 2 or 3 tracks. And I remember at that time just being like, oh wow, there's a real weird mix here. Because at one point I feel like I'm listening to Bomb Squaddy stuff.
Yeah. Quite dense.
Yeah.
Lots of things happening.
Yes. And then the other moment I'm listening to a really chilled out Dre track.
Yeah.
And I'm very smoothed out. And I just love that. The variability in this album now I think is testament to why it's aged really well.
I think so, yeah.
So you've brought in the vinyl and you've brought in the CD.
The reason I did that was because It's kind of confusing because I remember getting the vinyl because I was a vinyl buyer at the time. I bought 12-inch records. You know, I'd bought the Players Ball 12-inch and I was like, okay, I'm ready for the album now.
Sweet.
You know,
how old were you here, by the way?
I was like, just starting college maybe.
Okay.
So like, I'm like 18, 19 maybe.
Okay. And at that point, just so I get a bit of context of where you came to Outkast, like you were fully into hip hop from what age? Like what would you say?
Oh, from like the mid 80s. As soon as I kind of heard hip hop, I'd say late 80s is kind of my starting point.
Right.
Even though I was aware of it in my orbit before that. Definitely late 80s, you know, so my foundation years were Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Public Enemy.
Okay.
So Rob Bass and Easy Rock, It Takes Two, hearing that on the radio as a kid, growing up, that kind of paid in full. And then being a very committed record buyer from probably from 89, 90, where that was my only reason for living. Like I'd work every spare job I had, and I lived really far up in the north at the time. I lived in a place called Darlington.
Oh, Darlington, wow.
I mean, Darlow as we call it. And I was always just like, how do I get to the promised land?
Yeah.
You know, of London. You know, well, I mean, probably the real promised land was New York. But how do I get to London? I used to take the bus. I mean, this is going to sound really like, I really date myself. I used to take a bus down at the age of like 14. When I think back, my parents were like so liberal letting me do this.
On your own?
On my own, from Darlington, like to London.
What?
This is like a 300-mile trip.
That's mad.
At 6 a.m. with the money I'd saved up, and I'd, you know, get there as the shops were kind of opening, walk around Soho and just kind of ask people, where's a record shop?
As a 14-year-old?
Yeah, 14, 15. Yeah, the commitment was real. And I'd be able to buy like 100%. A couple of albums, and it was so meaningful. You know, I had to get it right.
Yeah.
Because I had a long journey back.
And you're going to cherish those. Even if they're not very good, you're probably going to love them.
Trust me, Cam, those albums that I bought, I know some of those albums are 3 out of 5 albums, but to me, they are absolute
Name names.
I need
to know.
Steady B, Let the Hustlers Play.
Okay.
You know, maybe not an incredible album.
Yeah.
Steezo,
right?
You know, like
these
Crazy
are before
Noise.
my time, but now I know I'm going to Google
these. Are super late 80s kind of James Brown breaks, funky raps.
Yeah.
You know, very very much kind of Big Daddy Kane rip-offs sometimes.
Yeah. I know we're moving away from Outkast here, but I'm just really interested to know, as a 14-year-old from Darlington, what was it about rap that kind of, what hole did it fill for you? Like, what was it about the music that you weren't getting from other places? If you know what
I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, some people are always like, oh, I got into rap to rebel against my parents. But as I've clearly just said, my parents, I had no reason to rebel.
They were really nice.
They were clearly letting me do what the hell I wanted. It was more just, I think, the whole thing of seeing breakdancing for the first time as a very young child, then hearing rap, and it just sounded like different.
So Rob, we've had yourself, My Stiggy, Rodney P, Ty, Black
Legends.
And 100%.
Excluding myself, obviously.
No, you're in there. I was thinking, every one of you have talked about breakdancing as the first thing that got you in.
That was it. It was just the visual of it. It was just like, I think it's the same when people probably see, you know, people get addicted to skateboarding. They probably see it and like, this is something that I'm not being offered anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it felt like the bar of entry to get to it felt so high in hip hop at the time.
Yeah.
So I was stuck up in Darlington and I was like, how do I be cool like that?
Yeah.
Because I'm not cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this stuff looks cool.
Yeah. But who were your friends? Like, did your mates get into it? Or was
I had like 3 friends, literally.
Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, I had way more than 3 friends. Like, let me just make that very clear. I was very popular. Still am.
Okay,
however,
well, we get it.
Like about 3 friends who I could talk to about hip hop.
That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, and it kind of was enough.
Absolutely.
And it kind of made it more special in a way.
Yeah, definitely. The one guy I had as a friend, big up Ben Allen up north, but he wasn't into music really at all.
Right.
Rage, he was into Rage Against the Machine, and then we watched a few films here and there, Juice and stuff like that with me.
Menace to Society era.
Yeah, and that was it. And then he'd get All Eyes on Me and Lethal Injection and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I have one guy I can at least talk to about
That's
this.
Great.
Other than that, it was I had none of that. So I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain. So bringing it back to Outkast, when you found this album, then, so what was the big difference you were saying here about the vinyl, and then you found the vinyl, you got the 12.
Yes, I bought the vinyl. Then my friend had bought the CD, and I realised that the vinyl was lacking about 4 tracks, and including my intro to Let You Know, which is one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's an incredible statement of intent.
Huge.
And I didn't hear that until like about 3 or 4 weeks later. I was like, I've got to have the CD as well.
Oh my, why would they leave that? That's so weird, isn't it?
It was a weird time, 1994 particularly. Ready to Die is exactly the same.
That doesn't have the puffy intro.
So Ready to Die, the actual original single vinyl of Ready to Die, has about 9 or 10 tracks, 8 or 9 tracks.
Wow.
And like, I think the album has like 17 or the CD or something like that.
Yes, at least, got to be around there.
And that one, so I was like, I'm not getting caught out with this one now. I'm buying the CD.
Did you get both then?
So yeah, I have both of both. At the time, I still fancy myself as maybe one day I'll DJ. And at the time, you needed vinyl. You didn't think you could DJ with CDs in 1994. But yeah, they were trying to phase out vinyl basically. So some albums were coming without picture covers. Wow. So for a vinyl buyer like myself, it was kind of hard. It was like, oh, I really want to buy the album, but this one hasn't got as many tracks. And it's bizarre. So me hearing the album, first of all, was a totally different experience for them hearing it on CD.
So take down the track list for me. What was the first thing you got there on the...
So you get the Peaches intro, but then it goes straight into Ain't No Thing, which, isn't necessarily a bad thing. So at the time when I had that...
That's still a strong intro.
I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah.
It was Ain't No Thing, Southern Playalistic.
Yeah.
And before you know it, it's like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. But when you hear my intro to Let You Know...
it's unbelievable.
I think it's like... Because I've been rinsing this album before this. So one... Thanks for giving me that excuse just to go back to it.
And have you been enjoying it? Going back to it?
Absolutely. But I remember now why I loved it as a kid.
Yeah.
Almost now to the point that, I should have rinsed this more, but I rinsed 80 Aliens and Equemini so much and Goody Mob that I was thinking I didn't really give this its due. I listened to it clearly for the singles, but listen to my intro to Let You Know. If anyone's out there now, just switch this podcast off because it's not as good. Just listen to that intro.
I mean, that's fair.
That is fair. There's I think it's like a gong and then like this whistling bomb sound.
That's right.
And then bang. And when you talked about statement of intent, oh my Lord.
Yeah.
On this podcast, we do talk about our favourite bars and like the hottest bars of the album that you liked. And one of my favourite was the intro to Big Boy when he says, time and time again, I'll be thinking about the future. Back in the days when we were slaves, I bet we were some cool ass ends, but now we vultures. And I was like,
it's
you're
almost
18,
like,
mate.
That's almost Big Boy's raison d'etre there in one line.
Yeah.
And he's lived up to that.
Oh my God, yeah. But again, going back to what I said there about being 18 years old and being that confident about anything.
Mind-blowing, isn't it?
In life.
Mind-blowing.
Mind you were confident about getting a bus.
Yeah, I mean, I could take a bus. They could release a masterpiece. I don't think it's equitable.
It's somewhere there, but yeah, it's not on the same spectrum, is it? But yeah, you're right. But so if you're talking about favourite tracks and stuff like that, was there anything off here that you were like, I need to gush about this one track, or was there something?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a complete album. It's an album that I know you sometimes ask people what you would take off, and there probably is a couple of things I'd take off, but it's close to perfect for me because it's very homogenized. It all works together like super well. But my original one was Southern Playalistic, but then Get Up, Get Out, that was the one for me.
Yeah.
Get Up, Get Out.
You listen to that now and it's
to
amazing.
This day, that's probably my one of my...
Even the video's good, mate, still.
Video's incredible.
Like, so Get Up, Get Out, if no one's heard this, it's got
that has
CeeLo.
my favourite bars on it.
Yeah? You got any off the top of your head?
CeeLo. I don't recall ever graduating at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel I'm just a disappointment to y'all.
Mate, that is
every
so
day
good.
I just sit. Oh, it's just it's so conversational.
Yeah, exactly the right word. And that's when you listen to it now. First of all, you see CeeLo's star power, man.
Yeah.
When you see the Dungeon Family,
unbelievable.
For me, Big Gip was always the person that I was like, oh my God, this guy looks amazing.
It's called Big Gip for starters.
What a name! What a great name.
I did a with Southern Hospitality. We do showcases at South by Southwest, and we did one at A3C 2014, I think, was our last one at A3C.
Where's A3C? Just
Atlanta.
It's Atlanta. Okay.
So I was, just hanging around in Atlanta, and guy just randomly walking down the street, and I just said to my friend, "That's Big Gip." So I just had to walk over to him, and he was just ambling along the street, and I was like, "Big Gip." How are you?
Just in an English accent.
Yeah. And he was like, how are you doing? He's a super nice guy. And I just,
my God.
I know some people get starstruck. I mean, I used to be an interviewer myself, and I've interviewed a lot of rappers and met a lot of, I guess, famous people. But meeting Big Gip was just, for me, was like, I didn't know what to say apart 100%.
From...
Can I have a photo? You're amazing.
What more can you say?
Well done, Big Gip.
Well done, Big Gip. Oh, I need that on a t-shirt. That's great. Well done, Big Gip. But saying that about, like, you were talking about star power.
Yes.
Star quality. So clearly at this point, Organised Noise, they've produced stuff for TLC, right? At this point, yeah.
And if you actually listen to a couple of the tracks on the album, even like Southern Playalistic, it has exactly, you can tell that some of those productions came off the same reels as those TLC.
Yes.
It has almost exactly the same kind of chug as Waterfalls.
Yes.
If you actually go back and listen to some of the tracks, you're like, oh yeah, that's just Waterfalls, but with a couple of extra kicks here and there.
I need to hear that again,
Yeah, so they were blowing up.
Yeah, so going to CeeLo, Get Up, Get Out, and obviously Big Gip. The Organised Noise alone, the star power of those guys was amazing.
Yes.
They've done Waterfalls, for fuck's sake, massive.
That was a big song.
Yeah. Some people have heard that, haven't they? And then you've got people in Goody Mob who just look the part. And then when CeeLo was on that video, and he's just talking very chilled.
It is, yeah.
But it was hitting home. I remember that being on Yo MTV and being like, oh wow, they're putting the two of him together.
Yes.
You know, on the video,
like he's talking to his auntie, isn't he? And he's
and that was really weird because I was like, oh, I suppose like DMX did that and Biggie probably did that as well. There was instances of this, but I don't think I'd ever
I guess
heard
Suicidal Thoughts. And Give Me the Loot. And
Give Me the Loot.
A few others, yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, there was no puffy ad-libs on the back line, like calling up like, don't kill yourself, mate, on Suicidal Thoughts. That winds me up to this day.
I wish he'd said, don't kill yourself, mate. That would have actually elevated that track.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. But so when I hear that Get Up, Get Out, it's so positive, and then CeeLo bringing this kind of very knowingness of his situation. He's bringing both arguments to the table of, you know, you shouldn't be at home smoking weed all day, and then he's like, well, what the fuck?
What am I supposed to do?
Yeah. Well,
because every job I get is cruel and demeaning. You know, and it's I feel like all their music on this album, particularly personified in that verse, it's sort of a hopeful hopelessness. It's not desperate. And it's not nihilistic in the way that Mobb Deep is nihilistic. There's definitely a bit of hope behind what, maybe not even hope, confidence. They're like, this is a situation we're in.
Yes.
However, we're ready to take this on. Like those bars you said about Big Boy kind of summed that up.
Yeah, the confidence is unreal. But yeah, you're right. Like about this, the sentiment, it obviously shows what they've been listening to in the past, because there's this kind of, that hope really makes me think they must have listened to a lot of Tribe and De La Soul.
Yes, yeah.
And that native tongues movement
and
was
you know
clearly there.
I think that's maybe what, you asked me what attracted me to that album. I think it reminded me of that early 90s, very colourful era.
Yeah.
Because rap had got quite dark for a year or so.
Yes.
Even in terms of how the videos looked and how styling, musically, there's a lot of killing, you know.
A lot of killing. There's some gunplay in this album as well, but they have a lot of other stuff going on there as well. And this is the thing, I think Goody Mob were more the kind of like, you know, when you have like a mate who's read loads of conspiracy theories as a kid.
Yes.
And he just keeps telling you about, you know, you shouldn't do that because they're watching you, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
That was more Goody Mob for me.
And that really came out in like Cell Therapy later. Another of my favourite verses ever.
The beat on Cell Therapy is unreal. Like,
I still don't understand that to this day.
Boop, boop, that thing in the background,
sort of weird, like,
they use.
Sounds like something scuttling across the floor in the background.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there's a few elements of that on this as well.
Yes,
so you have that had the same kind of school of beats, I think. But then when you talk about this album and when it came out, and it kind of was on the tail end of this 92, maybe 92 to 94 golden era.
Yes,
so you had a lot of stuff come out.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember a lot of 1993 wasn't great. And people romanticized that year massively because of October onwards. October onwards, you got like 93 Till Infinity. Yeah. November, you then got Snoop, Wu-Tang, and Tribe, all within weeks of each other, some on the same day.
That's mad.
You got Blue Mind State in that time. So you remember 93 well, but I remember a lot of 93 as kind of post-Das Effects, a lot of Iggity Wiggity, you know, a lot of chanty choruses, a lot of, you know, quite generic kind of almost some horrorcore stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like little things like that, you know, and it was a little bit gimmicky. Yeah. It was a gimmicky year until the end of the year. And then it rolled straight into 94. Then you had Illmatic, then you had, you know, everything else. Ready to out, you know.
So when you see this album about like, when we talk about like building a world of from somewhere that you've not seen before, this album was one of them ones that kind of made a statement. And I know every time I hear about Outkast, I hear about the Source Awards.
Yes, of course.
Were you aware of the Source Awards?
Yeah,
at that time?
I was.
Yeah.
I was so rabid at the time. I remember reading about. I read about the recap of the Source Awards. I don't think I saw it at the time. There's actually now a full version of that online. Have you seen that?
Oh, the whole.
Someone's released the full version version of that Source Awards. And actually, it shows how revisionism comes in, because people imply that Andre thing was after the Snoop and Shug thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It's actually a slightly different continuity than the story's being told.
So hold on, right? So just so if no one knows this, Source Awards, I think was it Best Newcomer they were up for?
Yeah, Best Newcomer.
Best Newcomer. And then at the same Source Awards, you had Illmatic not win anything, probably.
Yeah, it might have even been Best Album, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It might have even been Best Album.
Jeez, that's a statement.
One of the two.
Yeah, and then we had, that was the one where Shug went up and called out Puffy.
Yes.
And it was in Brooklyn, right? Or something like that, or New York at least.
It was in New York, yeah.
And so you had all these New York people, and you had Snoop saying, people haven't got any love for the West Coast.
Yes.
So you have all this drama, but on top of that, you have Outkast winning an award.
That's right.
And Andre coming on stage and saying the South got something to say.
Yeah, because they were getting booed when they collected that award. They were getting heavily booed. Because I think it was a year when New York felt like they'd come back.
Yeah.
You know, because
Biggie and...
they'd been getting their arse kicked for like 2 years by the West Coast. Mm-hmm. You know, massively.
Yeah.
You know, things were flopping.
Yeah.
Things on Def Jam were flopping. People forget this, you know. And then Warren G kind of single-handedly saved Def Jam that year as well.
Oh, because he was on Def Jam, wasn't he?
Yeah, because he didn't get signed at Death Row, but that's for a whole nother podcast. But Biggie came back. They had Biggie, and obviously Black Moon were hitting by then, and Early Smith and Wesson. And New York really felt like they were kind of back. Illmatic, obviously.
For sure, yeah.
Even though that wasn't as big at the time as people now claim it was. I mean, revisionism. It was amongst us, amongst the heads. We were like, that's our shit, 100%. But yeah, so they got booed, and I think he was very emotional, Andre, at the time.
He looked emotional.
He was they were hip hop fans, you know. They were fans of New York hip hop. That's if you think about it, it's 1994. At that point, Atlanta only really will have had MC Shy D and people like Raheem the Dream, which was more like booty-based music, really.
It was bass music.
Bass music, you know, and Parental Advisory, who, you know, they're local heroes. But so I think they were gutted, genuinely gutted.
That everyone's booing them.
But again, as you said, the maturity, just to have the presence of mind to say something so profound.
But that's again the revisionism there. Like when you were saying when it happened, I've always thought it happened after the Shug stuff. Ooh. So does it happen quite early?
No, it's on there now. Yeah, and I didn't know that myself. And when I watched it, I was like, okay,
that happened. They got booed. Generally, just got booed.
Just got booed.
But then you do look at like in the documentary, is it Killer Mike or someone just says like Big Boy's there, just being very calm, very chilled, and he just goes, "You got something to say to Andre?" And he's just like, "Yeah, the South are here. We've got something to say."
He could sense that his boy had something to say, couldn't he? He was like, okay, mate, you do your thing.
You go, you do it, exactly. And I don't want to verge too far away from the album. We will go back to it in a minute. But if we just broaden this conversation out a little bit, the Atlanta scene then is now on the scene.
Yes.
So now you see this from 94.
Yeah.
I would say by... even before 2000, Southern hip hop is now huge.
It's big because obviously, like things like whether they were being bought in the UK is a different matter. But things like 8Ball and MJG were getting big. You know, obviously Goody Mob were big. Yeah. I mean, very, very big. You know, starting to get very big. And even this album went platinum at the time in the States. Yeah. You know, it was straight out the gate. It was big.
I think it might be diamond now. But
and then you had even people like the late 90s, and you had like Jim Crow and like Polo the Don's first group.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of, you know, they were starting to hit. And, you know, it was...
and people getting used to it. I think that's the thing about when you hear Southern rap. Wasn't it actually, might be Russell Simmons who said that. It was like, this isn't rap. Like, it doesn't sound like
that's
what
right.
you know. But that's the beauty of hip hop.
That's right.
So, and this is why people nowadays are like, oh, Young Thug, it doesn't really sound anything. But that is hip hop.
I mean, anyone who knows me in life and online, I'm constantly at war with the kind of real hip hop brigade because I am a real hip hop person. I've been in hip hop for like 30 years. I've got like 5,000 records. I'm obsessed with hip hop. I have been every day of my life since.
Darlow represent, man.
Exactly. But for me, when I got into hip hop, what was so dope about it was how weird it was and how new it was. So in the late 80s, every week everything sounded different. So you had Slick Rick, who sounded nothing like Too Short, who sounded nothing like De La Soul, who sounded nothing like Public Enemy. So that's the kind of grounding I had. So I think things did get a little bit more uniform in the mid-90s. So I think people go, oh, that's real hip-hop. And that, for me, that was just a phase of hip-hop.
Yeah.
So the Pete Rock, your Premiere, your DITC, I love that music almost as much as my own children. But it's a phase in hip hop.
Absolutely.
It isn't real hip hop.
Yeah.
Or it isn't the definition. It's just one definition of hip hop.
Because one day you wake up and you want to hear that. The next day you wake up.
That's right.
I know this is not a very good example to use, but I don't mind Masterpiece stuff, some of it.
Yeah, I love it.
Now, like, I still listen to a bit of Ghetto D where I'm like,
listen,
that's still
there's some
right.
incredible stuff on those No Limit albums.
Yeah.
KLC was an amazing producer. You know, Beats by the Pound in general.
Yeah.
And their stuff has aged like a fine wine.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
play it now, and look at the influence it's having now on music.
Yes.
Like 3-6 Mafia.
Yes.
You know, KLC, Beats by the Pound. So we're talking about Southern rap obviously becoming massive with in the late 90s with No Limit, Cash Money, and 3-6. That's more of an influence on hip hop than any boom bap
Anything
stuff.
else. And this is where Southern Playalistic comes into me
That's
as well.
right.
So it's got elements of boom bap, but it's got that Southern flavour that
That's
it
right.
brings in 1994, and bang, Atlanta are now on the scene. And this is what I'm just going to ask you is, Southern hip-hop overthrew New York rap and West Coast rap as well. Why do you think that is? Like, do you think it's a societal thing, or is it a music business thing, or is it a stylistic thing? I mean, I'd just love to know what you
I think it's a combination of a few of those things you mentioned. I think in a music business sense, if you go to Atlanta, obviously so much more stuff in Atlanta is black owned than it is in other major cities in the States. You know, culturally and financially, black people just own more stuff in Atlanta. It's just factual.
That's interesting.
And so once they did get the foothold, it was no surprise that then you got megastars out of Atlanta, whether it's Usher, you know, Sierra, Young Thug, Future, whoever they are, you know, over the years, Jermaine Dupri, etc., etc. It's more, I think, that, again, it's another thing where people go, oh, Southern hip hop. It's like, if you think about where most music forms have come from over the last 90 years, pretty much all of them from the South.
Yeah. Blues. Yeah.
Rock and roll,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely
funk,
true. Funk.
Everything.
Mate,
So
you blow my mind there a little
when
bit, 'cause
people
it's true,
people are surprised that the South are good at making music,
Yeah.
I'm always like, just have a think about that statement you're making. It's kind of crazy.
And then you have the whole country Nashville thing as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have everything.
Once they did it and get embedded, they've got that kind of cultural weight behind it that maybe you don't have in other cities.
Yeah,
you know,
LA especially. I think
LA especially.
LA had them spits and spats
That's
of like
right, yeah.
dominance.
That's right.
But New York tend to have this like, because it was the birth. It was the
Yes,
Mecca.
of course. And you can never deny that. You know, that's there for forever.
Yeah. But you're right, the South has this huge embodiment of, I mean, you look now and you think, wow, it's crazy. And that's a really good answer, mate, because I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I always just try and place everything in the context of where we are, historical context, you know? And, the thing I love saying to everybody is, yeah, and obviously DJ Premier's from Texas. Yeah.
Mate, absolutely, yeah, exactly.
Your favourite New York rap producer is actually from Texas. And one of my favourite rap producers, I'm not even dismissing New York, I love it all.
But you have to have the context.
Exactly, you have to have the context.
Mate, I love that.
And I think the other thing is that we mentioned it being conversational. I think it's the reason why Jay-Z was also one of the biggest rappers, maybe the biggest rapper ever, because Reasonable Doubt was conversational in the way that Southern Playalistic was conversational. It's suddenly you're speaking directly to the listener. It's not like, hey, I'm the dopest rapper. Check me out. I'm doper than those other rappers. And I love that too. Yeah. But Jay-Z was the first on the East Coast to really just break it down. I'm just talking to you here. I'm giving you some information. I'm not distancing myself from it. This is me. I'm part of this. I think Southern rappers always done that.
That's mad.
So I think people relate to it.
Do you think he was influenced? Do you think Reasonable Doubt was influenced by Southern Playalistic at any point?
I don't know about influence, but he was definitely aware of like Too Short and UGK and that kind of stuff that always was like that. Very conversational.
Because it isn't the do you know what I mean? Like that kind of like the Kane flow or the Rakim flow.
The intensity of New York, I think.
Yeah. Which, again, in my top 5, Rakim, definitely. But like when you look at this, it's interesting when you hear Big Boy and Andre, the lyrical wordplay is unreal. Even now, you can see why Andre should be in top 5 conversations.
100%.
And I think that's slept on in the UK more than in America.
In the UK, I think people try and say that, no one was checking for Andre in the 90s. And in the UK, that kind of was true. And he was part of a group, very much part of a group at the time. Yeah. He wasn't separate until he put on a turban. Like,
What an evolution. What an evolution.
It's like, I don't think people are checking me out too much in the UK. Let me just put on this turban.
Let me drink from this vase.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Let me like go bare chested with some like fake grass trousers on.
Yeah, leafy trousers, mate. Oh, I love how Earth, Wind and Fire is looking though.
That's right.
It's so
It's very Earth, Wind and Fire.
I love that look.
That's
though.
a great shout.
But it is though. It's like I love that expression, man.
And Earth, Wind
You
and
need
Fire is
that.
the right, because Organised Noise produced the Earth, Wind and Fire comeback album, because I know that Organised Noise's biggest influence is Earth, Wind and Fire, because I've spoken to Sleepy Brown and people about this.
Oh my god!
So
really?
you hit the nail right on the head there.
Jesus, I think I kind of blindly blundered into that one, but that's great. But that's what I'm saying. You can hear the influence though, the guitar licks and the funk. There's so much funk on this album. I love it. Like,
Yes.
oh, the funk, man, it's so good. But when we were talking about Andre, the thing I love about Andre, the look, the evolution, it became a bit like a Bowie figure for hip hop, where my mum knows what he looks like, and my missus, like, she doesn't listen to hardcore hip hop. Oh, she didn't even listen to old school 90s,
Right.
but she knows Outkast tracks. And this stuff about Andre, what was it Puffy said on that documentary? Like, I'm the first guy who told Andre, take your shirt off for the video, and he's never put it back on since. Like, he's just always shirtless. To be fair,
Because they were involved with the Players Ball video, weren't they, Puffy?
I think Puffy directed
Yeah,
it.
directed it,
Puffy
yeah.
directed it. But again, that's a great thing for someone like Puffy to be like, do you know what? I love Organised Noise. He's a producer, so clearly he knows musically they're amazing. And two, to be like, you know, this is a new act. I'm going to help and I want to direct. And that's a really well directed video, to be fair.
And I think Puffy gets a hard time over the years, especially from quotes unquote real hip hop fans. But if you actually look at the dope producers he's actually put onto a bigger scale,
Oh, he's co-signed loads.
you know, like putting like Havoc on like albums that sell 10 million copies, and putting Ron Lawrence and Derek Angeletti used to be in Two Kings in a Cypher, which was just a forgotten Afrocentric, kind of fake Afrocentric group.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they were in a group called Two Kings in a Cypher, managed actually by Reggie Osei, Combat Jack.
Right. Oh, Combat Jack. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they were there on the cover. It was like a pyramid on the cover, very just cashing in.
Oh my God.
Wearing a fez on the back of the cover. And
Tommy Cooper stuff.
yeah, and it had like a glossary of terms: fez, hat, warm, chemet.
No.
Yeah, honestly, like, you know, like a little inserts he used to get in albums.
need to
And
see
then
this, that's
a
amazing.
few years later, he met Puffy, and Puffy turned him into the Mad Rapper.
Yeah.
You know, then he became the Mad Rapper.
That's mad.
And I think he goes, oh yeah, we just did that because that was what was trendy at the time.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But that's, again, the Puffy thing is, we have to give him credit for that kind of stuff. And I love that video when the way he's directed, his Players Ball, I think, directed, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the way that Rico Wade's shadow
Yeah.
like comes into the scene, the first thing, I just love that.
And they're playing the dice, aren't they, in the
Playing
room?
the dice, yeah. And I love
You know that record was originally recorded for the LA Face Christmas album.
I heard this.
So there's actually really nerding out for a minute, if that's okay.
Absolute nerd out.
On the
This is
12
place.
inch, so there's two 12 inches. They both look the same, but they've got a different track listing. So the first one on the back says, from the forthcoming LA Face Christmas album.
Right.
And it has the sleigh bells in it. That's why it's got the little shaker sleigh bells in it.
Yes.
So all the players came from far. It was like, Christmas celebration in the hood.
Yeah.
And then the second version has the extended version, which we hear on the album. And it says, from the forthcoming Outkast LA Face album. So that Players Ball they just tossed that out there as a kind of, let's give these guys, we'll take a chance on them. We'll put them on a Christmas album. What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst can happen, yeah.
If not, everyone's just going to play the Tony Braxton and Babyface songs.
It's absolutely
We're
fun,
good to go.
Yeah.
You know, TLC have got, you know.
And they just landed on an absolute gold mine there.
And I think they then said, what else have you been working on?
Yeah.
And then they just went,
well, we're
"Here
in the
you-
dungeon. Check this out.
Here you go.
Yeah.
We have all this amazing music.
Yeah. The dungeon alone sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't
it? Rico, is Rico his house?
Yeah,
His
it's like his
basement?
mum's basement, I think.
His mum's basement,
Yeah.
like red clay walls.
That's quality parenting right there, isn't it?
Yeah. All you need to do is get a 300-mile round trip as a 14-year-old on a bus, and that would be like the best.
3,000-mile round trip.
I love that. And and I just love the idea of them going into this little dungeon, this basement, making this amazing music from this little place in Atlanta. But if we go back to what I was saying about Andre, like as a lyricist on this album, we talk about like the generations of rap from 90s and a lot of the stuff. Like I posted some Mace things. He's
Yes.
from the 90s.
Yes.
And people on Instagram are just hating me. Facebook, like, are you a dedicated hip hop page? Why are you putting Mace on here?
Really?
Which is really interesting because I feel like that revisionist history of you become very
Mace
secular
was,
and polarized.
I knew about Mace from Children of the Corn.
Yeah, right. It's a Big
And,
L
'cause I was-
and Cameron.
I was the huge obsessive Big L fan. You know, we would get tapes from New York and
Yeah.
Cameron, Mace, Children
Yeah.
of the Corn. So yeah, he cleaned him up, but Mace could still rap.
Absolutely.
Mace is a very dope rapper.
It's a weird thing when you hear people now. I think there's a little bit of like blinkers or like rose tintedness to stuff. But like if you look at like the 90s and people then were talking about selling out and people being different, just not being like, oh no, I'm not listening to that. It sounds too different to what I like. When you listen to Andre and how he's continually got better and better for me.
Yes, he has, yeah.
He's seamlessly now working with new artists in this decade when he wants to. Yeah. I mean, I'm here for the Andre album if he ever brings it out. But he just works with Frank Ocean.
Yes, that's right.
And kills it.
On the Tribe Called Quest comeback album recently.
Tribe Called Quest,
no problem.
Kills it.
Even in the sort of mid-2000s when he had that little run when he was on like Walk It Out.
Yes.
And he was on the Throw Some D's remix.
Throw Some D's,
where he was just like hopping on all the kind of big kind of southern snap anthems of the time and murdering it. Yeah. Doing these massively intricate verses that still worked over.
Look at the way he forms his lyrics and how they interlap, and they have rhymes within rhymes, and everyone talks about Rakim and they have rhymes with it. So does Andre.
Yes,
and Andre's way of doing it is so unique. And then when he does stuff like, I think it's on the James Blake album, mate.
Yeah.
I listened to James Blake in the car.
The album from this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just like, Andre, that might be the best verse I've heard for a long time, and that's on a experimental R&B type of singer-songwriter
album. Yeah,
and the way I thought about Outkast generally, they remind me of J. Cole in the fact that J. Cole brought out that Middle Child thing, which was a brilliant track for all the haters of new school rap and old school rap to hear someone in the middle who's just saying like, I know my Jay-Z's and Nas's.
Yes, yeah.
But I also work with my, the younger 21 Savages.
I think J. Cole has been very smart over the last 2 years.
Oh, well, the Little Peep thing. Not Little Peep. Little Pump. I can't remember which one it was. Yeah. It was Little Pump, I think, where they were having beef. And then he just said, you know what? I'm not going to get into beef. I'm just going to sit down and do a YouTube video with you.
And he put Young Thug on his tour and everyone's winning.
Everyone's winning. And that's it, right? And that's
everyone's winning.
Now. Yeah. And the thing I love about Outkast and the J. Cole similarities is the fact that Outkast they just moved on with the times really well.
Yes.
They've aged really well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, unbelievably so.
Yeah, what's going on, mother lovers? This is Mice Diggy, none other than Mice D-I-double-G-I. My mother says that I've been trouble since I was knee-high. And you're locked into the one and only Crate 808 podcast right here. Enjoy this week's episode and remember to subscribe, rate, and review. And don't get too excited that you do the do in your shoe.
So this album alone, when we talk about aged well and aged bad, one of the things we do talk about is what for you, what has aged the best and aged the worst about this album?
I think probably aged the best is probably say Crumbling Herb. Just because it's so musical.
Yes.
And again, you could just drop it in any time. It's very easy on the ear. So it's not got those abrasive beats that maybe My Intro to Let You Know has. I think probably Crumbling Herb is
very smooth.
Because it's smooth.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of timeless, almost like listening to like 70s soul in the 90s.
Yes.
You can listen to Crumbling Herb now when you're doing the dishes.
Yeah. There's something about soul and blues and funk that has that timeless quality in jazz as well.
That's right, yeah.
And I think you're right. That's really good. Age the worst? Have you got anything that aged the worst, I think?
Probably like maybe Deep at the end. And it's not even, again, I like it.
It's a great track though, isn't it?
And there's some great rapping on it.
Yeah.
But again, if that wasn't on the album, I don't think the album would miss it.
Yeah, that's fair enough, yeah. What I liked about...
I don't think anyone's going to go, I've got to play Deep by Outkast.
Although, saying that, mate, you say that. I was rewinding that one quite a lot.
Yeah.
So for the hottest bars...
The bars-wise, they go in.
Oh, absolutely.
They properly go in.
And this is how diverse the album is.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So you have like a very hippie, very psychedelic sensibility to the music.
The middle of the album's very sort of psychedelic. And then they sort of truncate it with the hard bars, hard stuff at the start and at the end. So
it's not really
just like a little reminder.
Yes, and you've nailed it. The sequencing, exactly that. You have to get through this hard interior to get to this nice, soft, gooey stuff.
Yeah, nice way.
Then you get to the hard exterior. And what I loved about if we're talking about like age best, age worst, I know you talked there about Deep. Some of my lyrics on there, mate, I'm just going to spit these out, some of my favourite bars. This one from Andre again. A Big Boy's got bars as well, but this one from Andre. If a pair of Jordans came out, you'll figure I got them, but no, I don't, because I don't be having funds. The gold I'm wearing is truly made of bronze. It weighs a ton and make my neck turn green. And you're like, wow, you're talking about stereotypes. You're talking... There's a lot of conscious stuff on here.
And that's something he's fought throughout his whole career, isn't it?
Yes.
The kind of stereotype of what a black person from Atlanta should be.
Yes.
As something he's always... I don't even think he's had to fight against it because he's just always been himself.
He's just done it, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's just done
Then
it.
he talks about the Confederate flag on there.
Yeah.
He's talking about, on Get Up, Get Out, he's talking about the vote and saying, why should I vote? Like, you know, that kind of thing. Like, it's only a bunch of crackers or whatever that are going to get in and whatever. And you think the nihilistic desperateness is also just really well complemented by an 18-year-old artist, 19-year-old artist who's written something that's teaching me now, almost as a 40-year-old,
it's crazy,
about
isn't
like
it?
black stereotypes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, even now I go to this album and I'm getting this stuff. And
even later in his
amazing.
career, when he jumped on like the Walk It Out remix, he was saying, take that t-shirt 2 sizes down, because it was a time everyone
was going for the baggy stuff.
But doing it on their song.
Yeah.
Like super subversive always.
That's meta.
Yeah.
That's so brilliant. I love that. Age the Best for me. I mean, yeah, I love the harder stuff sometimes resonates with me generally more. But Funky Ride, man.
That's amazing. Yeah, that could have easily been my shout as well.
People will go, like when you hear Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, that's not really hip-hop. So people just look at that track and it's not really hip-hop. It's got the best guitar solo I've ever heard in a hip-hop album.
Yeah, but that's like saying Parliament isn't really hip-hop. They created hip-hop, so
exactly,
it's all part of the same
thing. It's all part of the thing, right? It's all part of the same thing. And this guitar solo on there, mate, it's like Prince has just stepped into the room.
It's amazing.
And he's got this, oh man. I feel like the woman who's orgasming at the end. I feel you. I feel what you're going through, love, because I'm sort of going through the same.
And it's another one that shows their confidence.
Yeah.
To have that track on the middle of the album where it's just a sort of like a freak out for like 6 or 7 minutes or however long it is.
Yeah. Do you think that was organised noise or do you think that was more
I think that was probably organised noise saying, we've got this instrumental. Guys, do you want to rap on this?
And the fact that they were either so high or just so confident that or a bit of both that they just were like, it's our debut album. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's just stick it on there.
That's mad, man. I don't know many people who would take that many risks at such a young age.
I don't think so at all.
On a huge label like The Face.
Yeah, I mean, De La Soul's the only group I can think of who was so young when they released something so otherworldly. Yeah,
you're right, actually, because I think Public Enemy had been to uni by then and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
so
I think Chuck D was like 30 by the time he became a rapper.
So their
which at the time was almost unheard of in rap, you know.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it, to think that?
I think he thought he was, why are you asking me to rap? Like, I'm 30.
I'm 30, yeah.
You know.
That's mad, isn't it? It's mad. So other things I've got here that I wanted to ask you. First of all, the skits on this album. Are you a fan?
You know what? I actually played this album again in the house because I knew I was coming here. I don't really need an excuse to play it, but I did, you know.
Yeah.
And my wife was in the house. She said, I don't really notice the skits on this album before. And I think that shows that they work well.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes, you know, I'll be playing an album like Ready to Die and she'll be like, can you flick this one on, please? You know,
why?
She doesn't need to hear Biggie like pounding down on someone. You know, it's like...
I said this on one of the other podcasts, but I've never heard a blowjob in such high definition. Like
I know,
it's like,
know.
I don't need. No one needs that.
No one needs
no
that.
one needs that.
No one needs that.
I don't think Biggie needs that. Like I can't imagine Biggie listening back on that and getting turned on by the sound of it. Like it's happened, mate. It's not gonna.
I mean, even this conversation is so bizarre, isn't it? Like, no.
But then when you go to this album, and the skits of like I can't remember how exactly they're sequenced, but the plane
I think the one where they break down the parts of Atlanta, you will see the Georgia Dome. I think that was very much a statement of intent.
Yeah.
I think that was important. It was like, this isn't the Bronx. This isn't Compton. This is where we are.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did that, you know.
Yeah. And it worked.
It worked.
So I remember in my head having this idea of like, who are those? Who are the Braves? I don't know who the Braves are. And then I don't know where this is.
Home of the Braves, yeah.
Yeah. That, I remember at the time making me feel a bit more like, okay, is that the world, but the scene setting?
Yes.
That worked really well. But the one that sticks with me to this day is that kind of, I can't remember who does it. You might know. I probably don't know. But the skit where he's asking, are you an Outkast?
Yeah, Big Rube.
So
right. Big Rube, who like, that was then a theme of their albums, you know.
Yes.
He would do a Big Rube interlude.
Yes.
You know, and he, like on ATLians when he talks in 13th Floor at the end. And that, even to this day, sometimes gives me goosebumps, you know, because I'm just like, okay, this is some timeless life lessons and life instruction.
If my kid, I've got a little baby boy, he's 2 years old, if he came home and he was getting bullied or whatever, I'd genuinely be like, mate, listen to this album, listen to that skit. And I remember as a kid feeling like, it's weird because these people that you listen to on these records, they feel like your mates.
They do, yeah, definitely.
Because there's no one else.
Yeah.
You're on your headphones. I remember just going to bed with my headphones on and falling asleep with them on and being like, oh, I feel like I know Tupac now, or I feel like I know Biggie now because it's been talking solely to me. And that's the imagination of a kid, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I remember that listening to that skit and thinking, oh my God, like the subversive nature. And again, I came to this late, so I'd schooled up a lot on Malcolm X, Chuck D, Chris Morris doing the day-to-day stuff like that for us. It was all very subversive stuff going on in the 90s. I remember at that time, I think I probably even checked out a lot more stand-up comedy. So a lot more of that was getting submersive as well. And Bill Hicks especially, and stuff like that. And when that skit came on, I remember just thinking like, yeah, like being Outkast is part of the... And I never even gave their name any credence. But when you listen to that skit now, they nailed their name.
They really did, didn't they?
They were Outcasts.
Yeah, they were.
And they stuck by it.
And the
forever.
way they bring back the refrain of "there's only so much time left in this crazy world," he says that in the interlude, and then they bring it back in the refrain of "Crumbling Herb." And
and that is it something about the master plan? They're gonna and that again the subversiveness.
And
of
like
that.
you say, you mentioned Goody Mob earlier. Then they took it even further.
Yeah,
with like records like Cell Therapy.
Yeah,
and it was the paranoia and
the intelligence as well.
And about what was happening in Atlanta at the time when they say thinking our city is the big lick for '96. Obviously, they're shutting a lot of stuff down because they were going to get the '96 Olympics.
Oh, so they're shutting stuff down.
Yeah, so they're like trying to quotes unquote clean up the city.
Wow,
you know,
I never knew that.
Ready for the world to arrive for the Olympics.
So I see again now. I'm learning things from this where I would not have thought, but like that's amazing. So I have a few little staple things I'd like to ask you here. Non-90s rappers, if you had to, I know a lot of people don't like this question, but if you had to put some non-90s rappers on this album, what tracks and who would it be?
I would put Kendrick Lamar because I think he would fit perfectly on this album.
Absolutely.
His flow, his tone, his outlook on the world, and I'd just put him on the end of Get Up, Get Out as like an extra verse.
Yeah.
And if he did something similar to Dying of Thirst from, Good Kid, Mad City. I think it would just fit like a glove.
Yeah, definitely. And his voice as well. He can change his voice up.
He can change his voice because they all had sort of unusual voices their flows weren't staccato flows. They were all over the place. And I feel like Kendrick's one of the few rappers now who can do that.
Yeah, I like that. I had, because I was just thinking about, I didn't really want to necessarily put a Southern rapper on here, but I just thought when I kept hearing it over and over again, the musicality of it, I was just thinking Big Crit, man.
Crit, yeah. I mean, Crit's whole
He is
influence.
Outkast, right?
This album is probably the influence on Crit that you need.
That's
He's been trying to remake this album for his whole career, basically. No offense to Big Crit, but
it's true. Yeah, no, it is. But but when you listen to that, but he's doing well, and it again shows the power of this album where you're, oh wow, it still works because people are still doing that same thing, and
that's right. And I don't think his music's necessarily advanced from this, and it still hits.
Yeah. It still bangs.
Yeah, it still bangs.
Yeah, definitely. So we have on here what we like. Well, we don't like to call it that, but it eventually became Hurricane G Corner.
Oh wow!
Which was
Hurricane G talk. I'm here for this.
And it was. It started with. Well, it all started with when I first heard Triumph, and I love All the Woo. I remember on Top of the Pops they played it, and I was, oh my God, this is amazing, and all the verses were so amazing. And then Master Killer came on, and I felt just a big kind of like, like just a sigh. Where I was, that's a bit of a letdown, to be fair, mate. Like, I wasn't that into the Master. And then bang, it comes back in with other verses. So it was the Master Killer corner. Then I was like, it's a bit hard because Master Killer does have some good verses that I like.
He has a couple.
Yeah,
he has a couple.
And then we visited Exhibit's debut album.
Okay, yeah, I love that album.
Brilliant
Dope album.
I completely forgot Hurricane G on that.
Do you not like her on that?
Mate, no, I can't I can't get with it. I mean, bless her, she's great, but I cannot. Not that album, so it's just sort of morphed.
That's so funny because I'm obsessed with a Hurricane G record.
Which one?
Milky. And I've only got it only exists, I think, on some sort of Stretch and Bobito tape. So it's like, with drops over it, with like really dusty recording.
Oh, wow.
And I've even gone to the extent of asking Eric Sermon himself, say, do you mind sending me? You must have a file or a reel or a DAT.
That's got to be the most random thing he's been asked.
Yeah, I'm a very random hip-hop listener. But, I would put that ahead of, if someone said to me, could you have every Public Enemy record ever or this one copy of Milky? I'll probably go for Milky right now. This is where I'm at.
Well, I didn't know. So again, Hurricane G may have to be nixed off this whole thing. Alone on that's great. That's amazing.
I'm going to just show some love for Hurricane G. Let me just, while I'm here.
Fair. So let's call it the Larry Letdown Corner. The Larry Letdown Corner. So is there a Larry Letdown moment on this album where you were like, because I know earlier you saying like it's kind of seamless, but is there anything that kind of where you are?
Yeah, I think, again, there's a couple of hooks like Court of the Wild. I feel like could just be they're just
bit clunkier.
A bit clunky. Clunky is the word.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as bad as, say, Mamacita on Aquemini, which sticks out like a sore thumb.
Mate, what? Yeah.
Even though I don't hate it, but it's relatively, that's if I was doing Aquemini, that would be the easiest choice in the world. But I think now just a couple of like clunky choruses, and they hadn't quite rounded things off yet.
And that's where ATLiens, I think, excels.
ATLiens it's perfection.
Yeah,
it's production perfection.
Yeah, this is rawer.
This is much more raw.
But I kind of like that because it goes.
Yes, exactly.
Well. Yeah, so yeah, and then we have two other bits. Album title, yay or nay? How are you feeling about this album title?
This is a yay all the way.
It's so all
the way. That was just, again, we just keep saying the same thing. It's confident. You're calling your album a title that is basically unpronounceable.
All one word.
All one word.
I have to Google
Imagine racking that in the shops at the time. The people are probably looking at that going, what are these guys doing to us? Like, imagine like if you worked in a record store at the time, like, yeah, have you got that new, I've got the Biggie album, Ready to Die. Yeah. Easy. Yeah, have you got the Outkast album? Like,
something. Yeah. And you see the Zs, you see the Ks. You're like, okay, this is a bit,
That's right. Yeah. Again, it's not even phonetically spelt correctly or anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I love it for that reason. Yeah, and that's why I love hip hop. I want hip hop to be weird.
Yes.
And so the weirder the better for me.
Yeah. Then the other side of that coin is, the other question we ask is album cover, yay or nay?
I think the album cover, it's a bit of a nay, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
It goes more into the tradition of like we're looking at it right now.
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, Andre's wearing a kind of like a sort of a brim.
Yeah, brim.
And it's a kind of, he's like, okay, I'm not sure how to style myself. We've got a lot of pimp talk on this album.
Yes.
Let me go a bit pimpish.
Yeah. And you got the cornrows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like it does nothing. The Outkast logo is amazing.
Yeah.
Classic.
Is that the Cadillac?
Yeah, that's the classic logo. I love that logo. Yeah, it's kind of like a play on the Cadillac logo.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
And but the album.
Yeah, although I have just spotted they've put like two shadows in the back there, which is a bit like stepping out the shadows. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too trying to intellectualize something that's not supposed to be intellectualized.
There's probably a bigger. I'd like to see the kind of bigger picture of this.
Yeah,
they've obviously cropped this from a larger picture.
Yeah.
And maybe it was like in the dungeon, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it was with, Rico and Sleepy Brown in the background.
Because you do think actually it's on the face. So it's not on the small record label.
Yeah, because the shadows are on the back as well.
Yeah. It's not a big label, so it's interesting.
I mean, they had budget, definitely. Yeah, there's no question.
So okay, I'm with you there. It's a bit of an A from me as well. But then again, because you sort of kind of symbolises the album, it's like...
exactly. Yeah. I remember when I first saw the Organised Confusion Stress album cover, I was like, what is that? Garbage. Yeah. But then the album's so dope. I'm like, look at that amazing cover. Yeah. Because it just totally clouds my judgment.
That's so true. We've got Sarah Love coming in to talk about Stress, dope. So that'd be good.
Has she chosen that?
She's going to bring Stress, yeah.
I'm glad someone's chosen that because that's another album that gets forgotten about. And
see, I can't do a pod on my own just talking about albums. It'd be so boring. So I'm glad people are picking albums that I love. It's like, great.
That's a great shout from Sarah Love. Big up Sarah Love for that one.
Yeah, man, definitely. It's going to be wicked. Hopefully be wicked. So yeah, keep a lot for that one. To be fair, I think if we were looking at like reviews it got at the time, that's one thing I like to look at.
Yes.
This nailed it.
Nailed it. They got 4.5 mics in the source.
4.5, man.
Which is at the time about as good as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Even Doggy Style only got 4 mics.
Yeah. I think Chronic got 4.
4.5.
4.5, did it? Okay.
So Chronic got 4.5. Doggy Style got 4. Ready to Die got 4.5.
So they were kind of on.
They were kind of
point.
They were always on point, I think. That early Mind Squad, the Mind Squad, Reginald C. Dennis, and those guys, they were super on it. It was only like sort of late 90s. Some of the reviews were a bit like, oh, hang on a second.
Made men.
Yeah. Oh, almighty RSO, one in the chamber, 85 mics.
I was so happy when Eminem talked about the 8-page Made Men spreads.
I mean, it was mad.
It's not just me then. It's not just me that's seeing these all the time.
It got absolutely mad. And don't get me wrong, I messed with Almighty RSO in the early days.
Right.
One in the chamber, the early Tommy Boy stuff's dope.
Okay. I don't know much of that. I don't know anything of that. Yeah. See, I don't even know
Benzino. The Benzino sauce and the Mind Squad sauce.
Two very different
They're two very different things. It's like Nescafe and, decent coffee. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They're just two different things.
Absolutely, man. We haven't talked about Hootie Hoo.
Oh, yeah.
And Hootie Hoo is a banger around here as well.
You know what? I wish I probably, again, that would be up there with Get Up, Get Out, really, as a kind of... Absolute classic.
It's just one, and that I think that's what got me revisit this album at a later stage because Seth Rogen uses it on. Have you watched Bad Neighbours, the film? Bad Neighbours?
No, I've not seen that.
Right, so Bad Neighbours, Seth Rogen. If no one's watched this, I love Seth Rogen anyway because he kind of reps hip hop.
He does a lot, yeah, very much so.
I love. There's just a random scene in this film where they're older people and the younger people are next door having a house party, and as older people are like, we need to close that house party down, and they all start hooty-hooing these young kids. They're like, hooty hoo, and I was like, in my head, I was like, I've heard that. I was like, hold on, is that
Yes,
Outkast?
that's amazing, isn't it?
And then Seth's like, oh my God, they're hooty hooing, and he starts spitting the rhyme.
Oh.
And his missus is like, what do you mean? He goes, it's an Outkast song, And I remember thinking, oh my God, they've permeated like pop culture to a point now where Miss Jackson, I expect that.
Yeah.
And Bombs Over Baghdad, I
Hey,
expect that.
yeah, exactly.
I expect that. But hooty hoo in a mainstream Hollywood.
That's dope. I need to see that now just for that reason.
Just for that, mate.
And the whole hooty hoo thing, the call when you see the police, again, that was bringing you into their world. Because obviously, like, Big L was talking about Jakes and one time, and then, different boroughs and had different names for the police. And
yes, and this is the thing about the vernacular in this as well.
Yes.
I did not cotton onto it
No.
for ages. Even the Confederate flag stuff that he talks about, and then and the stuff about leaving school, like Call of the Wild is like a bit about, like, I didn't know anything about it. We didn't even have SATs or anything like that. We had GCSEs, O levels, A levels, stuff like that. So it's like hip hop at that time. You have to just have that learning culture.
And you asked earlier about why you think Southern hip hop took over. I think it's what you just said there. It was very human, and I think ultimately humans relate to humans. And so the reason why Adele is the biggest artist in the world is because people just see her as a total human, as well as a very talented singer-songwriter.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And if you think about rap before that, especially East Coast rap, they weren't really human.
Yeah.
They were like talking about rap.
Yeah.
And they were these kind of gods. Big Daddy Kane, Rakim.
They're otherworldly, weren't they?
You're talking, you didn't expect them to be normal people.
Yeah.
And I think once people became a bit more like a regular person, and Eminem obviously being the best example of someone who cashed in on that better than anyone.
Absolutely.
Here I am, warts and all. I'll tell you everything, literally everything about myself.
Yeah. It's I always liken it to like
Kanye's another one.
Yes.
And it's no surprise these are the biggest artists in the world.
Because they have that,
And once Jay-Z started telling a bit more about himself, he became bigger.
Yeah, 444 especially.
Yeah, he became
but
bigger.
Beyonce had that as well. Yeah, but it's why my missus loves that kind of stuff.
That's why J. Cole's popular.
Yes, because J. Cole was just human. He's just
human.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah,
and I think the Southern rap, has always done that better than East Coast rap.
Yeah, and you can even look at XXX, and obviously he's passed away and stuff. But like that human element is very much his work.
Oh, I mean, my daughter's 11. I mean, XXXTentacion, she's just like, here's something in that. Like she goes, this guy,
really?
why did he have to die? It's like a
She's
tragedy.
11.
Yeah, it's like a tragedy to her.
Wow.
Those records like sad, like they blow her mind.
Was she into him when he was alive?
Yeah, so I play stuff at home all the time.
Right.
As much clean stuff as I can, you know.
Yeah.
And I have clean versions, obviously, because I'm a DJ.
Yeah.
And it's all that stuff that she relates to.
So who else is banging in the house?
Juice WRLD is massive. Juice WRLD.
Earth Gang, got any of that on the go?
Yeah, Earth Gang, Post Malone.
Yeah, and I can see what
obviously Billie Eilish, but that's not hip hop.
Well, yeah, it's not. But then I don't know the sentiment. There's a kind of weird like.
But that whole world, basically, she likes Young Thug.
It's that element of my child's 2, so I've got another good 10 years probably before he starts banging. Like what's going to go on in 10 years? We don't know. But that actually was something I was going to ask you. Like this last decade of rap that there's been.
Yes,
I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you thought the culture has changed, what's good for it, and then as an extension of that, 2020 next year, where do you think it's going to go?
The things I like about now, particularly, is I feel like hip hop has finally embraced its past in a healthy way. For years, it was like you were washed, you were done. These big artists were like, they're kind of finished. That's old school. We don't listen to that anymore. Now, I work with a lot of young people. I'm DJ. I have a lot. Yeah. I do events all around London, around the country, and they have very much a reverence now for the old group. So when the recent Wembley show with Public Enemy, Wu-Tang, Rap Gods show, and De La Soul, with Premier hosting, that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That would have been like, Wu-Tang, they can probably do a little show somewhere, or De La Soul were probably still playing relatively small venues. Yeah. Suddenly, De La Soul are back playing Wembley Arena.
Do you think that's a great thing? Cyclical thing of general, not just hip hop, but music? Like
music, yeah.
I think that happens with old rock bands as well.
Exactly.
Like that, yeah.
So in the sort of like late 80s, some of those 70s bands, even if you go into like black music, like Earth, Wind and Fires, and like the kind of 70s funk and soul bands, were struggling a little bit. And then they had a big revival in the 90s, and you get these revival shows. And that is so necessary for the culture, that you have the revival shows, and then you also have the brand new cutting edge shows, Little Keyed at XOYO, you know, and then round the corner you have Raw Digger at the Jazz Cafe, and both are sold out.
That's amazing.
And I love that. I definitely, it's going to sound super arrogant, I definitely listen to more hip hop than anyone I know. And all styles.
I believe that from a 14-year-old who would travel that far.
I'm obsessed. I think the obsession was bigger because I was further away from it.
Absolutely.
And I just think that's the healthiest thing now. Hip hop's comfortably selling out arenas, and especially UK stuff. UK rappers now, you know, selling out multiple Brixton Academy dates. Until about 5 years ago, the only people that could have, I mean, I guess Roots Maneuver got close to that in his prime. Dizzy in his prime.
Dizzy in his prime, probably.
But now we've got like 10 who can do it without even thinking
and
about
Kano's
it.
Like Kano, I think Kano.
And again, I think that's a good example of what I just talked about. Kano is now getting that respect he fully deserves. He's still relevant. They see him as an elder statesman. They put the respect on his name, and he's still cool and he's still cutting edge. And I love that. I love seeing that. I love to see that.
I almost regret that age of like being, so I was probably in my early 20s when grime was becoming massive.
Yes.
And I was so embedded in hip hop. I've done it since I was a kid. I just realised I had this tribal attitude.
Did you?
I think it stems from football, really.
Being
in football.
Yeah, that's true.
And it stems from this thing where subcultures are this is my thing.
This is my thing.
These are my things. I remember at that time, if you don't watch Football Italia, then you're not part of, you don't really know what's going on. Extend into hip hop.
James Richardson.
James Richardson. It extends into this hip hop thing where, once I got into Pac and the older stuff from Pac, it was like, I'm not listening to New York. I'm Pac. And then it became this extension of, now I like all of hip hop. Well, no, UK stuff, it's okay, but it's not really hip hop. And then when grime came out, I just dismissed a lot of it. And it's only after Dizzy and Fix Up Look Sharp and stuff like that came out, and I was started thinking, well, no, that's amazing.
Yes.
And I just matured as a person.
But if you think it's a similar kind of trajectory as original hip hop. You know, if you first recorded records like 79, those early years were a little bit of a whatever.
Yeah.
So if you think of about that as 99 to 2003, 4 in grime. A few significant records. A lot of it wasn't really recorded. A lot of it was a little bit like trying to work it out. So it was a little bit basic. And then 16 years on from that, it's then matured to what original rap did in 99. 98, 99, when it was the biggest form of music on the planet.
That's a really good way to put it into context, because, it's right. And now I love it. I love that. I think there's guys on Twitter, they're just asking, it's like, I love the 90s stuff. Can you do more stuff on grime?
Yes.
And I feel a bit of a fraud. I'm like, I can't really do that, because I as a kid, I kind of dismissed it.
That's right. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be authentic with it, though, haven't you?
Exactly.
You're like, you know that someone's going to do that better.
Exactly. And I will follow that guy, because I love. So we had Rodney P in here, and he's done the documentaries on grime.
Yes.
And I love that. I was like, oh my God, it's like learning like all this stuff and going back and revisit. I've always liked Wiley from Jump Street, because there's something about Wiley that's always got me going. When you hear Kano freestyling in their basements, you're like, I need to revisit Kano again a little bit more.
Exactly.
And those kind of moments of just understanding your own mistakes and going back.
Totally. I'm the same. I wasn't massively tapped into it at the time.
Yeah.
I was a little bit, because I was running some of the clubs, and I used to DJ in Shoreditch in the early 2000s, and I was playing a lot of Southern rap at the time.
Okay.
And all the grime kids came to our night.
Yeah.
Because we were playing like David Banner and T.I.
Yeah.
all that very early stuff, which was very similar to grime. Had those double time flows, and so I was kind of there, but I wasn't buying it. So I just look at the people who were there, like Hyper Frank and people like that, and follow their feeds and just learn from them.
Learn from it.
And I love to learn.
That's it.
I still just love to learn.
Mate, that's what I love about this pod, man. People like yourself coming in and just teach. Like, I'm learning all these things. I'm like, oh, wow, I need to check more of that out. It's great. So it's an extension of what I just asked was, so 2020 next year, have you got any like ideas on where this culture will shift to? Or
I mean,
are you along for the ride?
I'm always along for the ride. That's a given.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel that we're going to get, like you talked about Earth Gang earlier, we're going to get some this new generation they're just in now. Whether people like it or not, this new generation is going to be the year where the Juice WRLDs, like the Little Kids, they just dominate. The Baby, they just dominate, and they become like sort of like 9 years ago when you had J. Cole, Kendrick, Big Sean. They were kind of knocking around Wale, and then eventually they became the A-list.
Yeah, the
Maybe not
baby's going to be the A-list.
That's going to be the A-list. This
Yeah.
is the time when SoundCloud rap, or whatever you want to call it in its nascent period, it's the A-list next year.
Because I always think there's an interesting UK viewpoint on this whole culture, which is why I love doing this pod, because we'll have people like Sky Zoo was on the other day.
Oh,
where
yeah,
it's like,
dope.
That was great because you hear like the Brooklyn ideal
Amazing.
of it. But then I have yourself in now, and it's like, well, I'm just being authentic to where we come from. DaBaby has not hit here yet, really. Like he's hit. I'm talking about my age group, like so I'm mid-30s, early 30s to mid-30s. They're not as stringent as you think into because Rap Radar and the Rap Caviar playlist, stuff like
true.
that, they'll check that out.
They will do, yeah.
And they'll check out new tracks. Like, no one really listened to Rhapsody a lot that I know until I kept banging on about it. We've got a Crate 808 Bangers playlist. So I was like, look, just listen to this playlist. And I put a few different things on there.
Yes.
And it's got all your old school stuff. You've got Griselda. You've got a bit of that. You've got stuff that's going to cater to what you like. But also, let's put a bit of this other stuff on. And I feel like when DaBaby's big now in America is huge.
Yes.
Like, he's a sensation.
He's a sensation right now, exactly.
But when you made the example of Kendrick J. Cole, I think he's going to become that.
Yes, he's not there yet. For example, I DJ in the club, so I'm aware. So people ask me for DaBaby, but it's the cool kids at the moment who are asking me for DaBaby.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
The others are asking you for what? Kendrick J. Cole?
Yeah, or it might be like City Girls.
Okay.
And Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion, yeah.
Because they've kind of hit, like City Girls has been like a big hit over here, but so DaBaby, Shug, Suge, like that's hitting now. And I think the whole character of DaBaby and all the memes, I think it's going to become, over the last few years of DJ, I've noticed, this is what I've noticed over the last 10 years, things become very trendy now and they're very driven by memes and moments and visual things and Instagram moments.
Do you think that's a definite defining factor then?
Yeah, so for example, I was a huge Future fan from like 2010, but the Future from 2015, the Future who's, split up with Sierra and he's Mr. Ignorant and he's on all the memes. There was a while where all these people I've been playing Future to for 3 years come into my clubs and then they go, you're going to play Future? I'm like, I've been playing Future for the last 4 years. But like, I try not to be that guy. And I go, you're going to be fine. I've literally been playing it every week. Much to my annoyance. And then you had Young Thug was that for a while. Wow. And then they had like A$AP Rocky was that for a while. And now then it was like Megan Thee Stallion earlier this year.
Okay.
And then it's DaBaby in recent months.
That's eye-opening to me.
So that's how I notice the changes, because I'm getting instant feedback because I'm still out there in the clubs DJing. Like I get that instant feedback and I'm like, okay, that's hitting. Okay. And I sometimes play songs that I think, is this hitting? And then I play it and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm surprised.
You're
like,
taking a risk, you think. And
and like it's like massive, everyone knows every word. And I'm like, okay.
So if you had to do a party tomorrow, if you're doing a club tomorrow night, Friday night, and you had to put one track on that was going to make the floor move, what would you go with?
Probably Act Up, City Girls. That's probably the biggest song of the summer, yeah.
I love the fact that you still tapped in, because I'm talking about it from a point of view which is very much kind of like how I grew up. Kind of in my own circles.
Yes,
and stuff like that. And that's amazing. That's amazing, man. Well, another one that we actually had for the album that I forgot to do, but I need to ask you because I just wanted to know what you thought of this. For this album that we talked about, Outkast, Southern Playalistic, we have a thing called Feature Trinity, right, mate? So it's basically, we realised that when we talk about features on the Crate 808 pod, they always happen to be either Busta Rhymes, Method Man, or Nas.
Okay,
so
we can see Busta, definitely a Method, yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking, who out of them three, you had to pick one to go on this album, what would it be?
That's a really tough question. And my natural inclination says Busta, but I'd rather put Busta on a later album. Like, if it was like Aquemini, which is a bit more expansive, or, even Stankonia, I'd be saying Busta probably.
Oh, he would kill that, yeah.
Bombs Over Baghdad or whatever.
Just give him a hook.
I've got to say Method Man. And I'd just put Method Man as a raw hook. And you know what? He could have probably put... Method Man could have elevated a couple of the hooks that I criticised earlier. So get Method Man on one of those hooks, and then I've got no skips.
It's so true, actually. Yeah, he's got a very musical voice as well.
He's got a very musical voice. So and he has that
well.
Tone. It's husky, and it could sit nicely. And you know what? An Organised Noise 90s Method Man album would have sounded dope.
Yeah,
he would have.
I've never even considered. He would have sat
really. You think of the gruff voices that are in Goody Mob, for example. It would have sounded perfect.
Yeah, it would have sounded really good. Are you watching the new Woo documentary?
I haven't started watching it yet. I haven't started watching it. I watched the documentary,
which I really like that.
I loved that. It was great.
Sitting there in the cinema.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Brilliant, man.
And I will watch it, but just...
Okay, I won't spoil it. I just want to know what you thought of it. But yeah, okay, for the next time you come on. So, mate, thank you, Rob, for coming in, man. Thank you for doing this album. I really appreciate it. everyone, go bang this, please.
Please do that.
Please do bang this.
Outkast are more than Hey Ya and Miss Jackson.
They really are. They really are.
They are for life.
So, Rob, have you got anything that you wanted to promote or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just out here. You know, I obviously run hip hop karaoke around the country. I run my events in Shoreditch, Players Ball, which is where I played the Baby and City Girls. And
okay.
if you want to hear that new, that's the night to come to.
Okay, Players Ball. What venue's that?
Etropies.
Okay.
Just down the road, Great Eastern Street.
Wicked.
And just, follow my Facebook feed. It's lit.
yeah, definitely, man. No, it's true. I like the takes. I like the takes on Twitter as well. That's good. Cool, man. Thank you very much for coming in. And before I leave you then, I wanted to know, what is the last great thing you heard? So it could be old music, new music, but just the last thing you heard that was great.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the last thing I heard that I played on repeat was the remix of Cyanide by Daniel Caesar with Coffee.
Oh, I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah, it just came out on Coffee, jumped on the remix of it.
Oh, okay.
And it was like one of those things, like, wasn't expecting this, but now it just makes total sense. So yeah, Cyanide remix, Coffee on Daniel Caesar.
That's banging. Okay, I'm going to put that on my playlist, definitely. So, thank you for listening into the pod. Go check out Outkast. Go check out Rob's stuff. Facebook feed, definitely.
And I'm just Rob Pursey on everything. Pursey.
Pursey. There you go. Check us out on crate808.com. You can check our email. We've got all the stuff on there. On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Instagram's a bit of a 90s kind of just stream of consciousness we've got going on there. So yeah, check that out if you want anything from the 90s.
I thought you were going to ask me my five favourite rappers.
Rob, I forgot to do that. Oh, mate, yes, I need to do that. Yes, let's do it. I'm so glad you stopped me. Yes. Right, Rob, right. Everyone comes in here. They drop their 5 favourites. What have you got, mate?
Okay, because, I mean, like I say, I listen to a lot of hip-hop, so 5 for me is almost impossible. So I'm going to go Jay-Z.
Jay-Z, okay.
But 2003 onwards, I can't really listen to him.
So pre-2003 Jay-Z.
Yeah. I love 96 to 2003.
Okay.
And a couple of things afterwards.
The stipulations are already amazing.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I'm getting so specific.
No, I want it.
Andre 3000.
So he's
unsurprisingly, we've just been talking about this.
Yeah.
Posdnuos from De La Soul.
Okay, that's good. This is really varied.
Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest.
Interesting.
And Devin the Dude.
Oh, that's a really eclectic mix there.
And if I had 6, I'd put Mac Dre in.
Really? Wow. So that actually gives me a lot of an idea of your sensibilities of music generally.
Yes,
anyway.
definitely, yeah.
So interesting that you said there, Andre, because obviously we talked about his lyrical prowess, and yeah, it is amazing. But so the De La Soul thing is still very resonates with you to this day, does it as well?
Yeah, I think they just were so dope for so long.
Yeah.
And it's just in me.
Yeah.
For so long. And Posdnuos, he's just one of those rappers who he's just got every verse I like.
Yeah.
There's not anything I like. And maybe I would swap him out with Kendrick on a different day.
Oh, is Kendrick the what?
The new one that I would put in that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Kendrick has to be in there. Thank you, Rob, for reminding me about that, mate.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, absolutely.
I just know you always ask your guests.
I do always ask your guests. Thank you, Rob, for knowing that, because yes, obviously my producer hat was fallen off completely. But yes, so check us all out. I hope you enjoyed the pod. Shout out to Grindhouse Music for doing all the beds for this. So if you want to check out any good music, check him out. And until the next time, Rob, please, the doors are always open.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed just chatting hip hop. It's been amazing.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. I want to do this for a living. It'd be great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for real.
Thank you, mate. Peace out, man.
Cheers.